Hi. My name is Serafina Vale. I'm 28 years old. It was my anniversary dinner. 5 years of marriage.
A private room at a restaurant my father likes to brag he introduced us to.
Crystal glasses. Soft piano in the background. My husband sat beside me, calm, observing.
Halfway through dessert, my brother cleared his throat.
He stood up. Dramatic. Always dramatic.
We're ashamed that you use our last name.
Forks paused midair. My mother nodded slowly.
My father looked at her with pride, like this was some brave declaration.
Ashamed. Because I married a man who built himself from nothing. Because I invested differently. Because I refused to run the family business the way they demanded. Because I didn't need them. I didn't argue. I just held my wine. Calm. Let them finish.
Then my grandmother, who had been silent all evening, slowly stood up. She adjusted her pearls, looked directly at my brother, and said only 2 words. Check again. My brother's face went pale.
And suddenly,
the anniversary dinner wasn't about me anymore. The room went silent.
My brother blinked.
What?
Grandma didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Check again, she repeated calmly. Dad frowned.
Mother, what are you talking about? Grandma reached into her handbag, the same structured leather one she's carried for 20 years, and pulled out a folded document.
She placed it gently on the table. I updated it 6 months ago, she said.
Updated what?
My brother grabbed the paper first.
His confidence evaporated as he scanned the page.
Color drained from his face.
Dad stood up. What is it?
Grandma looked at me, not at them.
The family name, she said quietly, doesn't belong to the loudest. It belongs to the responsible.
Mom's hand covered her mouth. Because this wasn't just sentimental. This was legal. The estate. The holding shares.
The controlling interest in the original company my grandfather built.
Transferred. Not equally. Not traditionally. Strategically. My brother's voice cracked.
This says.
Yes, Grandma said evenly.
It says Serafina now holds majority authority over the Vale Trust.
The same trust my father managed. The same trust my brother expected to inherit. I didn't smile. I just took a slow sip of wine. Because I had known. Not to weaponize it. Not to threaten anyone.
But because Grandma believed something they never understood. Legacy isn't inherited.
It's entrusted.
And suddenly, the people who were ashamed I used their last name
realized it wasn't theirs to guard anymore.
My brother laughed.
Too loud. Too forced.
This is ridiculous, he said, tossing the document onto the table. She can't just rewrite generations of structure because she's emotional.
Grandma didn't blink.
Emotional, she repeated softly.
Dad stepped in. Mother, this isn't how succession works. We discussed this years ago.
Yes, she replied calmly. And years ago, I believed responsibility would mature naturally.
Her eyes moved to my brother.
It didn't.
The room felt smaller. My brother straightened his jacket.
This can be contested.
It already was, Grandma said. Silence. I had it reviewed by 3 independent attorneys. It's sealed. Filed. Activated. Activated. That word hit harder than the rest.
Dad's face shifted from anger to calculation.
When?
On her anniversary,
Grandma said, nodding toward me. My husband finally spoke for the first time that night. Calm. Respectful.
Why today?
Grandma smiled faintly.
Because today, she said, they were going to remind her she carries a name they think they own.
She turned to my brother.
You don't get to shame someone for carrying a legacy you nearly bankrupted twice.
His face went white. Mom gasped.
Mother! Oh, please. Grandma waved her off.
The board knows. The accountants know. And now, she knows. I did know. But I never needed to say it. Power doesn't announce itself. It waits. My brother's voice dropped.
So what now?
Grandma looked at me.
For the first time, she said gently, that decision is hers.
And every eye in the room turned toward me. Wine glass still in my hand. Calm. Unshaken. I set my wine down gently. No rush. No trembling. Just quiet control.
For the record, I said calmly, I never wanted the name to be a weapon.
My brother scoffed. Weakly now.
But if you're ashamed of me using it, I continued, you're free to stop.
Silence. Dad frowned.
Stop what? Using it.
That landed.
The Vale Trust controlled the intellectual property,
The holding company.
the licensing rights to the family brand, including the surname attached to every product, every contract, every expansion deal.
And now? Majority authority rested with me. Grandma didn't interrupt. She didn't need to. I looked directly at my brother.
You said you're ashamed I use our last name.
I folded my hands neatly. I'm not ashamed of it.
But I won't share it with someone who treats it like a trophy instead of a responsibility. Mom whispered, Serafina.
I ignored her.
Effective tomorrow, I continued evenly, any public-facing use of the Vale brand requires my signature.
My brother's chair scraped against the floor.
You can't be serious.
I am. Dad's pride was gone now. Replaced with something else. Realization. This wasn't revenge. This was governance.
Grandma smiled faintly, watching the shift happen in real time. The anniversary dinner they planned to use as humiliation
Had turned into a board meeting. And they were no longer in control.
My brother's face was pale, knuckles white as he gripped the edge of the table. You can't just. This is family property.
This is our name.
I tilted my head slightly, calm, letting his panic fill the room.
You mean your ego? I said softly. He slammed his hand onto the table. This is ridiculous.
Grandma, tell her.
Grandma's eyes met his, icy and unflinching. I already did, she said.
I chose the responsible air, not the loudest voice at the table.
The room felt heavier.
My husband remained seated beside me, silent, watching the shift with measured calm.
Dad opened his mouth, then closed it. He knew better than to argue against Grandma.
Fine, my brother hissed, desperation leaking through every word.
I'll go public with this.
Everyone will know what you're doing.
I smiled faintly.
Go ahead, I said softly. But remember. I gestured toward the documents spread across the table.
They are legally binding.
Reviewed, notarized, and executed. Every board member, accountant, and attorney knows the decision.
Your claim will be invalid. And anyone who sides with you.
I paused. Will be siding against the law. The color drained from his face entirely.
Because Grandma had chosen carefully.
I wasn't just given authority. I was protected. And he had just realized, too late, that his temper and entitlement meant nothing against preparation and foresight.
Mom gasped. Dad's jaw tightened.
My little sister peeked at me nervously from the corner.
I raised my wine glass slightly. Cheers, I said softly.
To responsibility.
And finally, to clarity. By the next morning, the full weight of reality hit my brother. Calls from family friends. Emails from the board.
Whispered questions in hallways. Everywhere he turned, people asked the same thing. Did you really think this would go unnoticed?
He couldn't argue. He couldn't charm his way out.
Even Dad, normally quick to defend him, kept silent.
Because the truth was undeniable. I now controlled the family legacy, the brand, the trust.
And every public use of the name required my approval.
I didn't chase him. I didn't yell. I simply stayed calm. Watched.
Every misstep he made, every desperate text, every frantic call only reinforced the lesson. The loudest person doesn't always inherit the power. Preparedness, responsibility, and patience do. By evening, he had stopped speaking altogether. Even Mom realized arguing wouldn't change anything.
Grandma's eyes met mine.
A faint smile.
I nodded slightly. The lesson had landed. Power isn't given. It's earned.
And for the first time, the room understood. The shame they felt about me using the name
was theirs to carry. That evening, I stood in the center of the dining room.
The same room where my brother had tried to shame me, where my parents had nodded in agreement, where Grandma had quietly observed everything. I raised my hands slightly, calm, deliberate. Let's make something clear, I said evenly. From this moment forward, any use of the Vale name, brand, or legacy requires my authorization. Public appearances, business dealings, even social events tied to the family. My approval is mandatory.
My brother's jaw tightened. Dad's face was pale. Mom swallowed hard.
Grandma's eyes gleamed faintly, satisfied.
I continued, voice steady. This isn't revenge. This isn't spite. This is governance. Responsibility. Accountability.
The things you all underestimated in me. Every head in the room turned toward me, fully aware of the shift.
You thought I would quietly comply. You thought I was a problem.
But a problem child who understands responsibility.
I paused, letting the words hang.
Is dangerous when ignored.
Silence fell. Heavy, final. My little sister peeked nervously from the corner. I smiled faintly. Does everyone understand? I asked. My brother nodded, pale and silent. Dad didn't speak. Mom barely breathed. Grandma's smile said it all. The legacy had shifted. Permanently. I picked up my wine glass.
To clarity, I said softly. To responsibility. And everyone in the room knew, the name wasn't just mine to carry anymore. By the weekend, the family understood fully.
My brother avoided eye contact. Dad and Mom spoke in hushed tones.
Even my little sister whispered, realizing the power shift.
I sat at the head of the table, calm. Wine in hand. The room had been quiet for hours. The air, heavy with realization.
Grandma finally spoke, softly. Serafina, you've handled this exactly as it should be. Calm, measured, responsible.
I nodded faintly. No yelling. No revenge. Just authority exercised wisely. The shame my brother tried to wield? Now his burden to carry.
The Vale name, the legacy,
was no longer a weapon for the entitled.
It belonged to the one who respected it, nurtured it, and carried it responsibly. I smiled, slow and deliberate, as the room absorbed the truth.
Power isn't loud. Control isn't forced.
Respect isn't demanded, it's earned. And in that moment, my anniversary became more than a celebration of love. It became the quiet triumph of clarity, wisdom, and foresight. The dinner that started with shame ended with recognition. The problem child was the rightful heir. The one underestimated was unstoppable.
I lifted my glass one final time.
To legacy, I whispered softly. To responsibility.